The movie begins with Ryan waking up in his car as he has been forced to sleep there. When he goes to his room, he discovers Tree and Carter together, with Carter dismissively telling him to leave. Ryan then heads to the school's science lab to meet his friends, Samar and Dre. The three of them have been working on a reactor they built for an experiment, and they're close to a major breakthrough. However, their excitement is interrupted when Dean Bronson enters and orders them to stop their project. He's frustrated with the frequent power outages caused by their work and insists they shut it down. Later that day, Ryan explores the dark science lab and cautiously checks the closet. Suddenly, Samar startles him from behind, but the real threat emerges when the babyface killer steps out of the closet and fatally stabs him. Immediately after, Ryan wakes up at the start of the same day, realizing everything is repeating exactly as it did before. Confused, he rushes to his room to interrupt Tree and Carter, sharing what just happened to him. Tree quickly deduces that Ryan is now trapped in a death time loop, similar to her own experience, and she explains the events of the first movie to give him some context. Tree and Carter then accompany Ryan to figure out who's trying to kill him. They revisit the lab and inspect the closet, but this time, no one is there. When Ryan shows them the reactor he's been working on, Tree makes a startling connection. It's Ryan's reactor that accidentally created the time loop she was stuck in, causing her to repeatedly relive Monday the 18th. The next day, Tree and Carter are attending a pep rally when suddenly the fire alarm blares. As students are ushered outside, Ryan notices Babyface glaring at him and quickly bolts in the opposite direction, with Babyface hot on his heels. Babyface catches up to Ryan, but Tree intervenes and knocks him out with a bat. When they remove Babyface's mask, they are stunned to discover that the killer is actually Ryan. However, this is Ryan from an alternate timeline. He has come to eliminate the Ryan of this timeline to avert a disastrous event involving the reactor. Ryan 1 rushes to activate the reactor in an attempt to mend the timelines, just as Bronson arrives to intervene. Ryan 2 tries to sabotage the reactor, but it detonates, resulting in a massive explosion that sends everyone flying. Tree wakes up in Carter's room, hearing him repeat the same lines he said every time she relived her birthday. When her phone plays her familiar birthday ringtone, she realizes with horror that she's once again stuck waking up on Monday the 18th. Frustrated and panicked, Tree storms across campus with Carter and Ryan, heading straight to the lab to uncover what's happening. They gather Samar and Dre, who confirm that the reactor is functional. Furious, Tree demands they find a way to fix it immediately so she can escape the time loop and finally experience a normal day. Tree heads to her room and finds Lori, immediately questioning her about the poisoned cupcake she suspects Lori might be preparing. To her surprise, Lori denies there's any cupcake, meaning she has no intention of killing Tree in this timeline. Later, in the dining hall, Tree is horrified to discover that Carter is dating Danielle, who, unlike the conniving version Tree knows, seems genuinely sweet in this dimension. Tree goes to meet her dad, David, for their traditional birthday lunch. However, she is overwhelmed with emotion when her mother, Julie, joins them, alive and well in this timeline. In tears, Tree embraces her mother for the first time in years. Together, the three joyfully celebrate both Tree's and Julie's birthdays. That evening, Tree scrolls through her phone and discovers a treasure trove of memories with her mom that she had never known existed. As Tree considers staying in this dimension, she sees a news report about John Toombs being taken to the hospital. Determined to stop him, she grabs a fire axe and heads to his room to kill him. However, a cop intercepts her, forcing her to drop the axe as he handcuffs her. While the cop is escorting her out, Babyface appears and kills the officer. Tree initially suspects Lori is the killer, but her assumption is shattered when Lori arrives via the elevator and pulls Tree to safety. Lori leads Tree through a construction zone, but Babyface catches up and fatally stabs Lori in the chest. Devastated, Tree flees up a staircase with Babyface pursuing her. Although she manages to trip him down the stairs, he quickly recovers and corners her on the roof. A struggle ensues, causing Tree to lose her balance and tragically fall to her death. Tree finds herself waking up on the same day once more, realizing she remains trapped in the alternate dimension. She teams up with Ryan to head to the lab, where they need to explain the situation to Samar and Dre again, in order to close both time loops. However, the challenge of finding the correct algorithm to restart the reactor requires Tree to endure multiple deaths, allowing her to memorize the crucial information needed for the algorithm. This leads to a series of harrowing moments, including electrocution in the bathtub, consuming drain cleaner, skydiving in her underwear without a parachute, flipping off the world as she lands in front of Carter and Danielle, diving into a wood chipper, and ultimately jumping to her death. Each time she wakes up, the psychological toll of her repeated deaths weighs heavily on her, culminating in her collapsing in Carter's arms before he rushes her to the hospital. Later, Tree is confronted by Gregory, who doesn't recognize her since he's not her student in this dimension. She learns that Gregory is having an affair with Lori. Tree urgently tells him to go get Lori away from Toombs, who is being escorted to the operating room. Tree then rushes out, knocking out a cop to take his gun. She makes her way to the operating room, but by the time she arrives, Lori is already dead. Toombs suddenly appears behind her, but Tree shoots him twice. She demands to know who freed him, just as Babyface shows up, trying to wrest the gun from her hand. Spotting a tank of flammable gas nearby, Tree shoots it, causing an explosion that kills both Toombs and Babyface. Tree wakes up again and desperately pleads with her friends to fix the time loops quickly, fearing that she might stay dead if they don't. Carter follows her, and she confides in him, explaining that in the other timeline, they are together. This makes it difficult for her to choose between him and her mom. Carter tries to reassure her, telling Tree she's living someone else's life and shouldn't stay trapped in the past. Afterward, Tree leaves and heads to lunch with her parents. But as they drive, she starts to feel pain again. She asks her parents to take her away from campus, and during the drive, Julie mentions having a treat with Tree for their birthdays. This is when Tree realizes what Carter meant. The memories she's experiencing aren't her own. The family stops at a motel to rest, and Tree receives a text from Ryan saying they are close to closing the time loops. While David is in the bathroom, Tree talks to Julie and asks her what she would have done if she never met David. Julie tells Tree she can't imagine a life without him, explaining how Tree changed her life after her birth. Their conversation is interrupted when Tree sees on TV that Toombs has escaped and killed Lori, the cop, and Carter, who went to stop him. Realizing that she must stop the loop from closing to save them, Tree grabs the car keys and rushes out. She attempts to reach Ryan, but fails as he and the others prepare for the reactor to go off. In a frantic effort, Tree drives toward an electrical plant, charging into a box just moments before the reactor activates. Tree is revived and immediately goes to Ryan to share the algorithm with him. However, this time, she's decided to return to her original timeline. Just as she's about to explain, Dean Bronson and 2 security guards arrive to seize the reactor a whole day earlier than planned. With little time to act, Tree comes up with an urgent plan to steal it back. She convinces Danielle to pose as a blind French student to distract Bronson while they take his keys and break into the office where the reactor is stored, ultimately returning it to the lab. Before heading back to her original timeline, Tree seeks closure with the people in her life. She approaches Lori and sincerely urges her to end her affair with Gregory, telling her it's not worth it. Tree gives Lori a heartfelt hug before moving on. She then goes to Danielle's room, intending to apologize for judging her, but is shocked to find a man emerging from the bathroom wearing only a towel. Tree realizes that in both timelines, Danielle is just as deceitful and manipulative. Finally, Tree heads to the birthday lunch with her parents, but before joining them, she asks David if she can have a moment alone with Julie. This becomes Tree's opportunity to have one last meaningful moment with her mother, offering a sense of closure before she returns to her original timeline. That night, Tree goes to the hospital to save Lori, armed with the cop's gun. She reaches Lori's room just in time to kill Toombs before he can attack. The 2 women run, but they're cornered by Babyface. Tree quickly deduces that the killer is Gregory, wanting to silence Lori for their affair. Before they can escape, Gregory's wife Stephanie arrives and shoots Lori. She then hands the gun to Gregory to kill Tree, but Gregory shocks everyone by shooting Stephanie first. Tree seizes the opportunity to run and grabs a weapon, with Gregory chasing after her. They end up in a room containing a high-powered magnet, which Gregory doesn't notice, but Tree does. As Gregory points his gun at her, Tree holds a screwdriver and delivers some final words. "You're screwed." With that, she activates the magnet, pulling Gregory toward it with a metal chair. As he struggles, Tree releases the screwdriver, and it pierces Gregory's chest, killing him. Carter arrives, and he and Tree help Lori onto a stretcher. Tree apologizes, wishing things could have turned out differently, though Lori doesn't understand. Meanwhile, Ryan, Samar, and Dre manage to get the reactor running, but Bronson and the guards try to stop them. Samar and Dre hold them off while the reactor powers up. Tree tells Carter they're together in the other timeline, and they kiss just before Bronson can pull the plug. Everyone wakes up in the room before the first blast. Tree asks Carter, "Danielle?" He replies, "Who?" and she gleefully pounces on him, realizing she's back home. During the credits, Tree, Carter, Ryan, Samar, and Dre are seen doing community service for their role in turning on the reactor. Suddenly, a couple of vans pull up, and agents from DARPA arrive to escort the group to headquarters. They've taken the reactor and praise Ryan for his scientific breakthrough. DARPA plans to use the reactor for an experiment and need a subject to trap in a time loop. Tree smirks and says she knows the perfect candidate. The scene cuts to Danielle waking up in bed screaming. In this way, movie ends here.